when you were watching it with all of your buddies in college, who were
Right.
the guys that you gravitated toward?
Oh, I mean, Sting was the guy who I watched. Like he was the reason I got in the business, or excuse me, became a fan, and then ultimately when I had the opportunity to get in the business, obviously the Undertaker, and then Jeff Hardy and those guys because I always loved the very flamboyant side that Jeff brought. And when I say flamboyant, I mean he was just very colorful. He was very like high energy. He had, the amazing move sets that he would do, the insanity that he had, jumping off anything and everything. Obviously, the Taker with a little bit of the likenesses with the size and the moving and the abilities and things like that. And just what Sting brought to the table, which was just iconic with the Crow persona. Because I didn't really know the bleached blonde Sting. Like I learned about that part once I became a fan, but I didn't see him. I didn't watch that. I didn't know about that Sting. So for me, like watching him initially in the whole Crow persona, and then getting to work with him in TNA, and then obviously getting to work with him more recently in AEW, and I finally, I requested matches with him in TNA. That never came to be. I'd asked, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll make it work," and it never happened. And then he showed up at AEW, and I think I remember asking again. I was like, "Listen, just I don't care what it is, how it happens, what goes on. Please give me a match with him at some point." I did get a chance to have a few promo segs with him, which was really cool for me. And then fast forward right before he retired, it was a multi-person match, but I did get to have that match and that moment, just him and I doing a woo off, and it was for me great.
That's amazing, dude. Now, like when you're first around Sting in TNA, presumably, it's like it's kind of a weird thing in wrestling where it's like you want to be one of the boys and you don't want to come off like a quote unquote mark, but this is a guy that you watched and admired and grew up, kind of looking at. Did you come to Sting and tell him like, "Hey man, really loved your work and huge fan of yours," or did you just keep it all professional?
Back then I didn't. Didn't say anything. I just kept it professional. I mean, he filmed a little movie about his life, and I got to be a part of that. And I remember always saying, I got to be in that little movie, and I got to hit him with a chair. And if that's all I ever get to do in the business, I'm good with that. I'll be out. I'm okay. He was always super cool. I do remember like when I was transitioning from TNA into WWE and trying to figure out what I could and should do. He actually called me. I reached out to him, and he called me, and we had a good conversation, and he gave me some thoughts about what he thought I could do or should do. And he didn't really have a big influence there necessarily because he'd never worked there at the time. But he did have a lot of advice on what he thought I could do and should do to help advance myself and the business as a whole, getting there, because that was, the only other real option at the time, on a big time scale. And so, he was nothing but cool. Like sometimes they tell you don't meet your heroes, because they'll disappoint you. And as the human being that is Steve Borden, Sting never disappointed. Steve Borden never disappointed. He was always a cool cat.